भूल जाएंगे हर गम गम तेरा न भूलेंगे करबला न भूलेंगे करबला न भूलेंगे
وسببا للمزيد من فضلي ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته والحمد لله الذي هدانا لولاية إمام زماننا وآبائه الطاهرين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أرواحنا له فداء أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون صدق الله العلي العظيم
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل.
First and foremost, I give my condolences to all of you on the shahadat of Imam Hussein, his family, and his companions. As we continue to commemorate this tragic event, particularly with the focus on preparing ourselves for the Imam of our time, we've come to a point in our discussion in the verses of Surah Al-Naml, chapter 27 of the Quran. We've reached to the heart of the discussion which we had began with, and that is verse 62 of Surah Al-Naml. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, is He not the one who answers the prayer, the supplication, the call of that individual who is in need, who is mudtar? He answers that call and He makes you from among the khulafa al-ard, from those who will be the vicegerents upon this earth. Is there any God other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has this ability to answer the call of the one who is in need, the one who is in distress? Is there any God other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is able to take an individual, again among His awliya, and make him the khulafa of the earth, make him the vicegerent of the earth? قَلِيلًا مَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. But very few are mindful. Very few remember. As we mentioned, that on one hand, this particular verse, it points out the essence of dua. That when someone is in a state of mudtar, someone is feeling that they're in a dire need or dire straits, and that there's no one else to answer, this is the dua that is answered. It is with that intention, with that niyat, it is with that state of being that you call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you realize that there's no one else that can answer your dua but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are the du'as that are answered. That is the type of dua that is answered. And perhaps one may ask that, sometimes we make dua, we see that we have no one but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but my dua is not answered. Or as we mentioned before, that Imam Zaman al-ajal Faraju Sharif, he himself, he also makes dua for his faraj. This is one thing that we stated from the very beginning, that we're in need. So when we make dua for the hastened reappearance of Imam Zaman, we make it with this state of being that, Allah, we are in need, that we are in distress, that we are those who know that no one can answer this dua but you. Likewise, we say that Imam Zaman, he makes dua for his own faraj, his own reappearance. One of the duas that we mentioned where the Imam himself, he calls out to Allah, Allahumma anjizli wa'adi. That, Allah, hasten that promise which you have given me. Wa atmimli amali. And complete for me that command, that affair, that command to, again, to come, to establish justice upon this earth. Wa thabbit wata'ati. And make firm my followers. Make them firm in their faith, in their belief. Sincere in their desire to walk the path of Rasulullah with me. To be sincere in their devotion and their help to me. وَامْلَأِ الْأَرْضِ بِيَّ عَدْلًا وَقِسْطًا. And fill this earth with justice by me. So we say that, is Imam Zaman Ajal Faraj Sharif, is his du'as not answered? No, of course his du'as are answered. Because someone may ask that, well, if this is the case, the one who's muhtar, and we said that this verse is indicating on Imam Zaman, if he's praying, if he's asking, how come Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not answered that dua? And this is something that Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi afdal salatu wasalam, that he addressed in the conditions of dua. Because the Imam Zaman is making dua and we're making dua. And of course, the dua of the Imam is much greater than our dua. But how come this dua, our dua of faraj, the Imam's dua of faraj, how come at this point it has not been answered? Imam Sadiq, he said that, or in this very long hadith, but just to summarize it, he pointed out there are two types of people that are making dua. He says one is zalim, one is mustahiq. That one is an individual who is an oppressor. A zalim means someone who is an oppressor, someone who's done something wrong. And when we understand this hadith of Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he's not necessarily pointing out someone who's a tyrant, but one who does a dhulm, even that dhulm may be to himself. In other words, one may be sinning. So he says, the dhalim says, this dua is not answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or that individual has no right that his dua should be answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, illa in yatub, until he or she repents for their sin. And then the next person is mustahiq, that individual who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will answer this individual's prayer. Meaning that he has not committed any sin, this individual is not Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer his prayer, and he has a right that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer that prayer, because he's obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in this case, Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he states that one should not doubt for a moment that Allah will not answer his prayer. Allah answers his prayer without doubt. He says, but however, you see that at times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will answer that prayer min haythu la ya'lam, in a manner in which that individual he may not be aware of. Sometimes we may ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. And this is one of the etiquettes of our dua, that when we begin our dua, one of the first things we do is that we ask for forgiveness. This is why when we read many of the du'as, if you go to Sahif al-Sajjadiyya, it begins one with salawat, many of them. And after salawat, then we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. And then after we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, then we enter into that part where we ask our needs, our hajat. This is the etiquette of dua. So that if we have done something wrong, if we are, again, among those individuals that Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he explained that, well, being in that state of being zalim, someone who has sinned, that your dua does not have, there's no right upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to even answer that dua. So we remove that state of sin by asking forgiveness. And then we ask our hajat. He says, so that individual, yes, his prayer, his dua could be answered, but it may be answered in a manner in which they are unexpected. They may not be expecting in a certain way. Sometimes we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something, and we want Him to answer the dua just exactly the way we want. No, it has to be answered this way, or it has to be like this. But Imam Sadiq says, no. No one has a right over Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that manner. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will answer that dua. It may be in a way that that person is not expecting. Either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give it, answer that dua in that same manner, or He'll answer it in a way that it may be unexpected, meaning that sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what we ask for, that need, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will store it, adkharahu, as Imam Sadiq says. He will store it until a time, or He will delay it until a time when that person is really in need of that thing. And sometimes He will store it, according to some of the other riwayat, to Yawm al-Qiyamah, because the person does not really have a need for that. And at other times, as Imam Sadiq, he states in this hadith, he says that at times we see that, or at times, the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will ask for something that is not really in his benefit. In fact, it will be detrimental to him. He says, so what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does, He holds back from that thing from him. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that that thing will be detrimental for him, although he's asking. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will change it for something else. So He will not give him exactly what he's asking for, because it will be harmful for him. And this is, again, in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He knows us better than we know ourselves. And at times we ask for things that it may not be good for us. One good example of this is one individual, he asked for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Asked Rasulullah, he says, pray for me that my risk increases, my sustenance increases. I want to make more. So Rasulullah, he looked at him, he says, are you not making enough for your family? He says, yes. So, but I just want more. If I have more, then I can give more sadaqah. I can give more to those who are poor. But the Rasul, he says, why don't you remain content with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with? He says, no, just give me more, and I'll do more. It will actually help me to be better Muslim, that I can give more. So he kept asking Rasulullah. So Rasulullah said, okay, fine. I'll make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases your sustenance. And when Rasulullah, he made this dua, at that point, I don't remember the exact situation, but at that point, Rasulullah, he gave him 2 dirham, 2 gold coins. And he took this, and he went and began to make business. He went off, and for weeks, Rasulullah did not see him. Weeks Rasulullah did not see him. Then it happened that he had some other situation. He came back to Rasulullah. He says, Ya Rasulullah, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase my sustenance. so that I can be a better Muslim. So then Rasulullah, he asked me, he says, do you remember that you asked before? He says, and what happened? He says, before your sustenance increased, he says, every day you would come to the masjid. Every day you will make your salat in jama'ah. But as soon as that your sustenance increased, you were gone. He says, so was that better for you? Did that make you a better mu'min or not? And he reflected, he says, SubhanAllah, it did not. My sustenance increased and my salat was delayed. I did not come for jama'ah. And then he regretted that situation. He asked Rasulullah, oh Allah, so Rasulullah, make dua for me that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he returns me back to my previous state. Shortly after that, his business actually collapsed. And he went back to having the same income that he had before. Enough to take care of himself, enough to take care of his family, and he was one who, again, he returned back to the masjid. So sometimes we ask for things which may not be in our benefit. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he knows this, so he will withhold that. But nonetheless, we continue to make dua. And in the state that we are, multar. And what does it mean to be multar? So that we can understand this. At times, multar means, again, literally, as we mentioned, that someone is in need. You need something. You don't have something and you're in need of it. Just like we are in need of our Imam. The people of Kufa, they wrote letters to Imam Hussein. They said that we don't have an Imam. We are in need of an Imam, someone to come and to guide us. So literally, you are in need. Idtirar, or being muftar, it also gives a sense of a person who is in a situation whereby he or she has no choice. An example of this is that when we go out and we buy our food, our meat, we get halal food. Or if we didn't have the halal meat store, then it will be our responsibility, our duty, to slaughter an animal and eat it in the proper way, to follow the Sharia. However, if we were stuck in a place that had no animals which were permissible for us to eat, as a pig or something like that. And likewise, we did not find that thing which is permissible for us to eat. At that point, we're muftar. That we have no choice. That in order to save one's life, you would have to eat that. Or at times, one of the more relevant issues that we get, sometimes someone may fall ill, may get sick, and a doctor prescribes a medicine. This is the only type of that medicine. And that individual needs it in order to maintain your health. Otherwise, they will get very ill and they will die. And in that medicine, there's alcohol. There's no alternative medicine without the alcohol. If there's an alternative without the alcohol, then you're obligated to use that. If there's no alternative, then you're muftar. You have to consume that in order to save your life. So muftar, it gives that sense that either you're in need of something or you're in a situation that there's no other alternative. There's no other choice. So when we say that, again, it's quite clear that in our own situation that we're muftar, that we don't have our Imam with us, and we are in need of the Imam of our time. It's quite obvious also within our situation that as we believe that the Imam, he will come and he will establish justice in this earth, meaning that he will establish a government which is completely just, free of corruption. And so we see that in our time that we are also muhtar, that we have to deal with, or we have to be in a situation where Yes, there may be government structures that are not completely just. So we're muhtar to be in an environment, live in a situation where the best of governments may not exist. Nonetheless, it is our responsibility, being a follower of Imam, to make every effort to establish justice, not to continue the corruption. And this is something that, again, unfortunately, some individuals, they have thought, and we find this in some of the writings of Western scholars, they say that, well, Shias believe that the only just government is the government of Imam Zaman, al-ajal for Sharif. So the Shias believe, and they categorize both Shias like this. Again, this is not the belief of the Shias, not even the teachings of the Imams, as we mentioned yesterday. He said that the Shias, they believe that they have to help the corruption along, so that the more corruption that exists, then the sooner that the Imam, he will come back. Subhanallah. This is not the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. We just mentioned yesterday one of the riwayat of Imam Sadiq alayhi, where he stated that do not, or know your status, know your place as the followers of Ahlul Bayt, and do not bring yourself وَلَا تُنْزِلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ مَنْزِلَةَ أَهْلِ الْبَاطِلِ. Do not bring yourself down to the level of those who are misguided. If they are being corrupt and there's corruption, then you should not bring yourself to that level. So, well, they're doing it, so we can do it too. Well, this person, he's cheating, he's lying in order to get the promotion, so I'll cheat and I'll lie too to get the promotion. Imam Sadiq, he says, don't bring yourself to that level. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has, or at least within the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, within the closeness and proximity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the believer is better. So do not bring yourself to that level. So we cannot promote corruption. It's not from the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhi. But rather, we must promote justice and make every effort to establish justice in every aspect of the society, politically, socially, economically, every aspect. It's our duty, it's our responsibility as followers of Ahlul Bayt. That was the message of Imam Hussein. This is why he rose up to go against Yazid, to correct those things which were wrong. So those who are muhtar, even the individual who is sick, he's in need of good health. And this dua that we often recite, أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ, we cite it for those who are sick. This comes directly from the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. And particularly our focus when we were reciting this, we can learn this from one of the du'as of Imam Sadiq, one of the things that Imam Sadiq, he wrote to one of his companions by the name of Dawood ibn Zurbi. Dawood ibn Zurbi, he says that he became very sick, very ill. When Imam Sadiq, he learnt of his illness, he wrote a letter to Dawood. And in that letter, he told Dawood, he says, say this, make this dua, Allahumma inni as'aluka bismika alladhi idha sa'alaka bihi al-muhtar. That, oh Allah, I ask you by this name, by your name, that name that the one who is muhtar, the one who is in need, when he calls upon you by that name, kashafta ma bihi min al-dhurrin, that you have removed him from that need or that difficulty that he or she is in. وَمَكَّنْتَ لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً وَمَكَّنْتَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَجَعَلْتَهُ خَلِيفَةً. And you have made that individual, you have empowered that individual in your earth, and you have made him your Khalifa ala khalqik. And to salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, and that you and give your salutations upon Prophet Muhammad and his family, وأن تعافيني من علتي, and to cure me from my illness. In this dua, Imam Sadiq alayhi wasallam, not directly mentioning that verse, but mentioning the contents of that verse. What is clear from that, you see that Allah, that Imam Sadiq, he's pointing to that there is a servant of Allah who is muhtar, and that is Imam Zaman Jafar Sharif. And this Imam, he will call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is muhtar, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he'll call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by a particular name. That he is making tawassul to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a particular name. So, Allahumma inni as'aluka bismika alladhi idha sa'alaka bihi al-muhtar. That name which this Imam al-Muhtar, he will call upon you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will call upon you by that name, and when he calls upon you by that name, you will remove his need. You will lift whatever difficulty there is. And you will empower him in the earth, and you will make him your Khalifa. So in other words, when we make this dua, أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرِّ, that we're calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or at least that our intention should be that we're making tawassul and seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by a particular name. And that name is perhaps obvious. وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءِ, Ya Kashif, Ya Kashif al-Hajat, Ya Kashif al-Dhur, Ya Kashif al-Su. Kashif means one who removes, one who lifts, one who takes something out of something. So we're calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that particular name. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he emphasizes this particular name, particularly with regards to our needs. Twice in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ فَلَا كَاشِفَ لَهُ إِلَّا هُ. That if you're placed in a need, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, he places you in a need. In other words, it's a test. He places you in this need. No one will be able to remove that need, remove that situation, except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that we are in this need that the Imam is in a khaybar. Our Imam is not present among us, visibly where we can see him. And the only one who will bring back the Imam is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why even when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil, when he was asked time and time again, when will Qiyamah be? When will this Imam come? He always said that this ilm is with Allah. Allah knows. Allah knows. When Allah decides, it will come. He will come. One thing is for sure, that when the Imam, he's making his dua, that dua is sincere. That dua is in a state that, yes, he's muhtar. Why? Because he sees the difficulties of the believer. And this is something that's recorded in the riwayat, that the Imam يفرح بفرح شيعته ويحزن بحزن شيعته. SubhanAllah. The Imam is saying this. He says that we are happy when our Shia are happy, when the believers are happy, and we are saddened when the Shias are sad. That truly, if we are in this state of sadness, and that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hasten the reappearance of our Imam, bring him so that we can follow him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will answer. But if we are among the mudnibeen, if we are among those who are sinning and who is asking Allah, then that dua, what effect does that dua have? That is not a sincere dua. That is not a dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will respond to. For sure we know the dua of Imam Zaman is sincere. What of our dua? When we say, al-ajal al-faraj, Allahumma kulli wali, what dua are we making? What state are we in? Are we ready for the Imam to come? Perhaps if our dua is not that dua that we are truly and we are showing need, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He won't respond. Or if that dua, God forbid, that dua is detrimental to us, as Imam Sadiq says, he says, we ask for something sometimes, and because it is not in our best of interest, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He delays it, or He puts it off. If our dua, if our calling was like the calling of Ahlul Kufa, that come, Ya Imam, come, but we do the same thing as Ahlul Kufa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's not going to answer this dua with regards to Imam Zaman. Because Imam Zaman is coming, he will establish justice. And as it is prophesied that when the Imam comes, said he will come, he will stand at the Kaaba, he will say that, is there anyone closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than me? Does anyone have more ma'rifat of Allah than me? Is anyone more closer to the Prophet Adam, to Noah, to Ibrahim, to Musa, to Isa, to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam than me? Is there anyone who knows the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than I know? These will be his words. Then he will go to the maqam Ibrahim. He will pray 2 rakats of salah, and then he will make this dua. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ وَيَجْعَلَكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ الْأَرْضِ. And when he makes this dua, it said that Jibreel, he will come, he will be the first to make bay'ah. And thereafter, 313 companions, they will make bay'ah to the Imam of the time. Meaning that that dua will be answered, and it will be seen that that dua is answered. The need of the Imam is not necessarily the need of us, but the need of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا. That these Imams, and Imam Zaman included, he will guide with our command. When the Imam, he's making this dua, أَمَّ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَا. He's a need for the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Waiting for the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then He will begin to establish justice upon this earth. And we know that that dua will be answered once Jibreel and the 313, they come and they make bay'ah to the Imam. So again, what is our dua when we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten this reappearance? Are we asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten this reappearance, that perhaps we can be among those 313? That we are making ourselves such that we can be among those companions of Imam Zaman? Because as is prophesied, unfortunately, after those 313, there will be thousands who will come, who will make bay'ah after these 313. Unfortunately, a few of them, after being with the Imam, they will turn against the Imam. Meaning that they recognize the Imam, they know the Imam. But when the Imam, he comes to establish justice, they they weren't ready for that justice. For sure, the 313 are ready, but some of the others, they wouldn't be ready for that justice, and then they turned against the Imam. So as we make dua, we should be sincere in our dua. Sincere in our dua, and making this dua of those who are mudtar, who are in need of the Imam. Making that dua of that individual who's preparing himself for the Imam. Not simply calling the Imam. That's what happened in Kufa. They called the Imam, but they were not preparing themselves for the Imam. And as soon as the test came, Ibn Ziyad came. They turned against the Imam. Their hearts were with the Imam, but their swords were against him. And we see in that battle of Karbala, people in the state of need, in the terror, in need. In the camp of Imam Hussein, they were in need of water. Their water had been cut off. If it was possible, in the camp of Yazid, they were in need of changing their way. But they would not change. So we see that this need of water was so great in the camp of Imam Hussein that all the family and the companions of Imam Hussein, when they went out onto the battlefield, that at some point in the battle, they came to a halt. At some point in the battle, it was their thirst that weakened them. At some point in their battle, they were crying out for water. In the camps of Imam Hussein, the children, they were crying out, al-atash, al-atash. There was a point in the events of Karbala when Imam Hussein, he was left alone, that there was no one left in his camp. All of his companions, they had been killed. All of his family members had been killed. Even Abbas, he had been killed. It's stated that Imam Hussein, he went out onto the battlefield in front of his camp, and he made this statement. He cried out, هل من ذاب يضب عن حرم رسول الله? Is there anyone that will come and to protect the household of Rasulullah? هل من موحد يخاف الله فينا? Is there anyone who claims that they're Muslim? Is there anyone who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they fear our rights, the rights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us over you? هل من مغيث رسول هل من مغيث يرجو الله بإغاثتنا? Is there anyone who will help us? And some have said that this statement was هل من مغيث يغيثنا هل من معين يرجو ما عند الله في إعانتنا? Is there anyone who will hope in the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by helping us? That when Imam Hussein, he made this statement, it said that the women in the camp, the children in the camp, they began to cry. They knew that this was a call of distress, that there was no one left, that only Imam Hussein was left by himself. He was the only one that left to defend the camp of Rasulullah. What happened next, it is very interesting, it's very ajib, it's very strange that some said that Imam Zain al-Abidin at that point, he began to get up wanting to go and to help his father. Some have said that also at that point Ali al-Asghar, he began to cry, and when Imam Hussein, he heard this, he went back to the camp and he asked Zainab, Ya Zainab, Ya Ukhay, nawilini waladi as-saghir, that, oh Zainab, bring my young son to me. Imam Hussein, he took Ali al-Asghar, he went forward onto the battlefield addressing the army of Ibn Ziyad. يا قوم قد قتلتم شيعتي وأهل بيتي. But oh people, you have killed my Shia, you have killed my followers, you have killed my family. قد بقي هذا الطفل, and the only one who's remaining is this young boy. يتلذذ عطشا. This young baby, he has left, he is thirsty. Look at the young baby of Imam Hussein, that this baby who is usually drinking from its mother, because the mother cannot produce milk, so the baby is left thirsty. So Imam Hussein, he went forward, he's asking, يَسُقُوا فَسُقُوهُ شُرْبَةً مِنَ الْمَاءِ. So give him just a little bit of water. They said that at this point, there became a debate in the camp of Ibn Ziyad, that some of the soldiers, they were saying, Nasqu, they give him water. Some were saying, Naqtulu, kill the baby. And as the debate was going on, it said that Umar ibn Sa'd, he told Hurmullah, he says, Hurmullah, that stop this debate, shoot an arrow and kill this baby. It said that Hurmullah, the best archer that was on the field, he shot once and it missed. Umar ibn Sa'd, he looked at Hurmullah, he says, what is this? That you cannot kill this one baby. So Hurmullah, he shot again, and this arrow, it went through the throat of Hurmullah's arrow. It pierced the throat of Ali Asghar. As the blood was running in the hands of Imam Hussein, some said that he took this blood and he wiped it upon his beard, and then he began to go back to the camp. But there was hesitation. Imam Hussein, he was saying, from Allah and to Allah we return. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Perhaps his hesitation was because Imam Hussein, he wanted to, how would he explain that this death of a young baby to its mother, how would he explain to Rabab that she took her baby just to give him water, but now he's coming back with the bloody neck of it. Ali al-Asghar, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. But Ali al-Asghar, Ali Asghar, he was the only shaheed that Imam Hussein buried. He was the only shaheed that Imam Hussein buried. So when the camp of Umar ibn Sa'd, when they came and they took the heads of all of the shahada, he noticed that there was one head that was missing. That was the head of Ali Asghar. So Umar ibn Sa'd, he told his soldiers, that strike the earth with your spears, searching for Ali Asghar. And then one spear, it pierced the body of Ali Asghar. We pulled the body of Ali Asghar up and they beheaded Ali Asghar.